Hey everyone, it's Shaf, a.k.a. that mill guy, coming at you with my very next Modern Mills sideboard guide. So, as the title of the video suggests, we're going to be taking a look at how we can beat one of the new menaces that exist in the modern format. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of streamers going at how we can build and change this archetype. It is Modern Amulet Titan. A lot of the scape shift lists are melding together with a lot of the Titan lists, especially with our new pal, Dryad of the Ilysian Grove. Well, Dryad is kind of mixing that together. We're going to be looking at the lists that primarily focus on the Titan strategy. Okay, maybe not the ones that use scape shift. Okay, let's stray away from those. The scape shift lists tend to be a little bit easier, but again, some of the ideas are melding together, so the deck lists are losing their, some of their identity. Okay, but it's okay. Primarily the amulet functioning lists. So we're going to be looking at cards that are good and bad against it. So what we're bringing in and out, some key cards that we want to keep in mind when we're going up against the deck, and of course what the deck is good and bad at. But before we get into that, as always, shout out to the Patreons. Hey, you're watching this video early. I see you. Thank you for keeping the lights on and the quality high. And of course, if you want to watch my videos early, well, join my Patreon, link down below. Okay, so let's get right to it. Let's look at, first and foremost, what is the deck good at? So the deck itself is a toolbox deck, okay, and that's why this deck was originally considered, and still to this day is considered, the best deck in the modern format, in the sense that it has no bad matchups, because it has a way to deal with almost anything. That's the ideal with this deck. It has an answer to everything, so it has no bad matchups. Okay, it's able to tutor up Grave Hate and Bujuka Bog, and it even has tutor pieces in stuff like Teleria West to get things like Engineered Explosive for board wipes. Okay, so it can do it all right? But with that in mind, what is the deck bad at? Well, we're going to look at this section and see how Modern Mill can apply some of these strategies. So the deck is bad at facing up against aggression, so burn, and even interactive aggressive decks like humans has a very good time against this deck. Okay, very good time against this deck. So how can we apply some of that strategy? So aggression and interaction at the same time with Modern Mill. Well, let's think about how we're already favored against this list. It is a big mana deck, and traditionally it searches its library a lot. And the key to that is we tend to always have Archive Trap turned on for us. We are always able to usually cast it for 0. So the aggressive element is already taken care of. But against this list, where does our interaction come in? Well, surgicals. This is definitely an archetype where if you're seeing a lot of it, especially in your LGS, maybe, in your bouts in MTGO, you want to be playing 4 main board surgicals instead of just playing, 1 in the side, maybe 3 in the main. Keep that interaction up, okay? Drown and Lock is going to be also another key card against this matchup. And this is definitely an archetype where people have slowly been experimenting right now with potentially shaving Field of Ruins and now playing Ghost Quarters instead to get that early game land destruction. And we're going to talk about why that might be important in this section. And that's definitely something that I'm considering, potentially cutting a Field of Ruin or 2 and going with a 2-2 split with Ghost Quarters. But that's going to lead me into my next section here. What are some of the key cards that we want to look out for? Well, first and foremost, Titan, Primeval Titan, okay? That is going to be one of the primary things that we want to be looking at, okay? So Primeval Titan, the namesake of the deck, is going to be the reason why the deck is allowed and is able to go from 0 to 100 and look for all the pieces it needs to. So if you're able to mill and surgical this piece out, you're already miles ahead. You've slowed them down so much, and now you can deal with one threat at a time instead of Titan looking for all of its pieces and having multiple threats. The next card that we want to look at is new from Theros Beyond Death. It is Dryad of the Elysian Grove. So what this card allows especially the Amulet Titan decks to do, the ones using Amulet of Vigor, is going to allow those decks to play value Valakits in there. Yeah, I said it. Mountainless Valakit Amulet Titan. Yeah, does not sound great, because what Dryad does, of course, it turns all their bounce lands, non-basics, whatever it is, basics as well, into mountains. It makes Valakut a value win condition that exists in that strategy, which is very scary. So in order to turn off one of their main win conditions, you potentially want to kill and or surgical away all copies of this card, okay? Turning off a lot. Finally, the last card that I want to look at is Field of the Dead. For all of you standard players out there where you saw Field of the Dead get banned, you know that Field of the Dead facing up against it, you do not want to go the long game. You need a race Field of the Dead. You need to win on the spot, which is again something that we're able to do because we're able to get glimpses off. We're able to get archive traps off that are generally always turned on, and so we don't want to be prioritizing hands that are a little slower. Okay, maybe hands with like Search for Iskanta, Fatal Pushes, cards that don't really do a lot. We want to prioritize hands with turn 1 Hedron Crabs, Archive Traps, and Glimpses primarily because we need to beat Field of the Dead. This card is going to be that long game engine that we're going to have a very tough time dealing with, especially once they start getting like, 6, 10 plus zombies out onto the battlefield. It's going to be very scary. We do not want to play the long game against this deck. We generally want to stop this deck right about where it gets about 1 Titan out and the potential to get another Titan out. That's right about where we want to think about winning, because that second Titan is going to steal the game. All right, usually if it's paired with another one or if it's just cast by itself, not where we want to be. But that's going to allow me to transition into this next section where we finally talk about cards that we want to bring out from our main deck for this matchup. So cards that we want to bring out, first card I want to talk about is Mesmeric Orb. So there's a bit of a play draw thing going on here. So if you're playing up against the 5-color list using things like Bring to Light or whatever, you're fine with keeping this in whether or not you're on the player draw, because those 5-color lists are not using Amulet of Vigor. They're not using it. Okay, so all their lands are generally going to be coming in tap, the ramped lands that they come out with. So Mesmeric Orb is going to be able to abuse it. But if you're on the draw against this deck, you will not be able to get Mesmeric Orb out in time to make sure it's effective enough. You would rather be casting Glimpse, the Unthinkable, and then potentially surgicaling something out. If you're on the draw, then if they play a turn 1 Amulet, you will then be able to play a turn 2 Mesmeric Orb, because you will get your turn 2 first, and then you're going to be able to go off from there because you're going to be able to take advantage of their tap untap, whatever it is, whatever shenanigans they're trying to do, you're going to be able to abuse against it. Okay, so a bit of a play draw thing there. The next card that I want to take out is Fatal Push. So I would shave some Fatal Push, if not take out all of them. Sometimes you do want to respect the fact that they do have creatures you want to kill. Now that Dryad is more of a mainstay in this deck, we do have more Fatal Push targets. But if you're playing against the 5-color builds that aren't really playing Sakura Tribe Scout, take it out. There's almost no need, right? Like, you're not going to be having too many Fatal Push targets, and they're going to be kind of ramping out all their lands anyway. So their lands are already on the battlefield. You don't really want to kill the enablers. You want to kill the payoffs, okay? Prioritize those Field of Ruins. Get rid of those Field of the Deads, Valakits, Bounce Lands, whatever it is, and then counter and kill those Primeval Titans with stuff like Drown in the Loch, okay? So that's what you want to be doing. Shave some Fatal Pushes, not that great of a card. Finally, the last card that you want to be bringing out against this matchup, because it does almost nothing. It doesn't really hit the relevant targets that it needs to, because this deck plays almost 28, 30 lands and plays a crap ton of creatures. It is Collective Brutality. Yeah, so I know Collective Brutality can be played in the sense that it brings your hand size down for Ensnaring Bridge. Why does that matter to you? All right, Primeval Titan is a 6/6. How many times are you keeping a full grip of 6 to 7 against Amulet Titan? Yeah, almost never. So you're fine. You're going to land in Ensnaring Bridge, and you're going to be perfectly fine against this deck. You're going to get a Pact on the rare scenario, and maybe in the post-sport scenario, you're able to get out maybe a Veil of Summer. I don't think that's going to happen too much. Take this out. 2 easy slots. Sometimes you're going to be able to bring in more effective cards. But that's going to allow me to transition to the next section. What are some cards you want to bring in against this matchup? So generally speaking, from things that exist in a Modern Mill sideboard, one of the cards that you want to bring in, if you have available to you, Dispel. Okay, plain and simple. We are so favored against this list anyway. There's going to be very few things that you want to bring in anyway. So why not board in against the worst case scenario? They're going to be boarding in Veil of Summers. They're going to be potentially bringing in another Pact of Negation, more interaction. So bring in your own interaction. All right, your main board plan is already fine, okay? There's nothing wrong that you're doing. So just protect the main board plan. Play that cheap counterspell interaction to deal with the cards that they brought in. Yeah, plain and simple, right? Yeah, nice and easy. Another card that you want to be thinking about bringing in, I mean, look, I already talked about it a lot and how important it is in the previous section. Surgical Extraction. Why are you playing it in your sideboard? That should be in the main board. I should be talking about Extirpate here, okay? Extirpate, Surgical Extraction. Bring that nonsense in, okay? Those cards are key. This is not a graveyard deck, but it's a combo deck, okay? Surgical at the prime time, then the Dryad, and then if you have anything left, well, take out the Field of the Dead, take out the Valakits, take out any other thing that they can use to find any type of win condition against you, okay? Because remember, if you feel like you're getting to the point where maybe you're getting into the long game, take out those Field of the Dead, take out those other things that can kill you, okay? You need to think about how you're going to be winning this game and what's going to be stopping you, okay? If it's a Dryad and a Valakut, surgical out the Dryad. That Valakut is going to do absolutely nothing in the Amulet decks, okay? So free up those win conditions, take those out. You want to be disruptive. Remember what I said, we're an aggressive deck because we're able to turn off our archive traps, but how can we act like humans and bring in those interactive elements where we don't have Meddling Mage, but we do have Surgical Extraction? Finally, the last card that you need to bring in, more of a category cards, but we'll say Damnation, okay? This is definitely going to be a style of card that you want to bring in, especially in a meta where in your LGS or maybe in MTGO when you're running through your games, you've seen a lot of them. Take out your Plague Engineers. Not for this. Plague Engineers come in and are, generally going to be naming stuff like zombies and just turning their zombies into 1/1s. It doesn't matter. You need to be able to kill the zombies and the Prime Time and the Azusa and anything else that's on the battlefield. Play Damnation, play Bantu's Last Reckoning, bring in these board wipes, okay? Sometimes you don't even want to bring in that third Ensnaring Bridge. It's not going to be that useful. They're going to find an Engineered Explosive, a Blast Zone to kill it, okay? Bring in the board wipe. Kill all the creatures permanently and then deal with that empty board. You can deal with a zombie or two for 2 turns, but you can't deal with an Amulet Titan, so take that out. You don't have a drown, clear the board, okay, and move forward with your plan from there. In this next section, I want to take a quick second to go through some honorable mentions. Okay, so one of the honorable mentions I want to talk about is, well, Ashiok Dreamrender. So Ashiok Dreamrender has that nice, useful text of your opponents cannot search their library, blah, 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 blah. So this is going to essentially turn off the Primeval Titan and the pact that allows them to look for them. Okay, so nice and simple. If you are playing the Scheming Symmetry list especially, this is going to be a prime target for you to surgical up. My next honorable mention is more so a deck building thing. Okay, so you want to be bringing in potentially, if you have the room for it and you're not playing the Symmetry list, you're playing the Control list and you have some free slots, Hand Disruption, Inquisition of Kozilek, Thoughtseize, cards that are going to be able to take out those win conditions out of your opponent's hand. If they already have the Amulet out, well, take out the Azusa, take out the other enablers. This is going to be things that buy you the time you need to get your interaction online, and especially important in those post-board scenarios where you might be, on the draw and everything, giving you that time you need. It may seem counterintuitive a little. A lot of people board out Hand Disruption, but remember, the Amulet decks require multiple pieces to be on the board to go off. Okay, it's not just one. If they have the Amulet out, okay, fine, you lost one battle, but you can still win the war. Take out the other enablers, and then you can deal with the Titan later. Finally, that's going to be all I want to talk about in terms of this matchup. Remember that, if there are some cards that I missed, please let me know in the comments down below. We just want to promote the discussion. What are some strategies that you use to beat the Amulet decks? And especially, we're going to be seeing a lot of this in the meta coming up, especially after the bannings, especially with Theros Beyond Death. But remember that even when you're playing against the odds, that the impossible is always possible. And as we ponder that thought, please remember to join me next time as we take a glimpse into the unthinkable.